did I want to start ADPList? Actually, I didn't want to start ADPList. Honestly, it was a side project. Really, it was a side project that I just wanted to do to help people during COVID-19. But it seems like the world needed something like that. It seems like people needed a resource like that, and it only felt right that I do it because I felt like I have the heart to go and do it. I've never thought of it as a non-profit. I've never thought of it as a for-profit. All along, I thought of it as I just want to build something that people want, and people will find it useful. For us, the key today here is to really, try to touch as many lives as possible, whether be it or not from Southeast Asia, whether be it or not from India or from the US, from North America. I think the key here is for us to continue touching more lives and having more knowledge exchange. I'm here to actually do this with you, and also most importantly, I'm here to actually listen to you and work on this mission together.
Hi, welcome to Your Great Story podcast. I'm your host Eric, and I'm a product guy in tech. In this podcast, I chat with founders and changemakers to discover their passion to solve hard and meaningful problems. Mentorship is something close to my heart. Having received mentorship in the past 5 to 10 years, I am now paying it forward to mentor others on this mentorship platform. In this episode, I'm going to chat with Felix Lee, co-founder of ADPList, the mentorship platform, to find out his journey of starting this community of mentors and mentees. Something that is really impressive is that Felix is only 24 and he has already exited from a startup when he was 20. ADPList was only launched in 2020, about a year ago, and it has grown massively to more than 4,000 mentors from 70 countries, meeting and sharing their experience with over 20,000 mentees. Stay with us to the end as he shares with us his tips of starting up and what he thinks the future of mentorship is. Without further ado, this is Felix Lee sharing his great story while you discover yours. Hi, welcome to another episode of Your Great Story. Today, I'm very excited to have our guest, Felix, CEO and co-founder of ADPList. Hi, Felix. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Eric. Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am actually more excited than you. I'm very honored to have you on our show. Just a personal sharing, I am a mentor on ADPList, and I've been mentoring quite frequently, regularly, and connecting with mentees. So thanks to you, there's this platform for us to connect to mentees.
No, thank you so much for being a part of it. It's really my pleasure. I'm very grateful for you for being a part of this community.
Awesome. Maybe just for people who haven't known you yet, right? Maybe you can do a quick introduction for audience out here.
Sounds good. Yeah. So my name is Felix, currently based in Singapore. I'm the co-founder and CEO at ADPList, and our mission is to democratize mentorship. So we work with the fundamental belief that everyone around the world, regardless of how rich or poor or how well connected or unconnected you are, you can get access to social knowledge and resources globally through mentorship. We look at mentorship almost like the internet access for education, because mentorship is a very open network access. It's free, it's for everyone, and everyone can get on board as long as you want to contribute or you want to learn from someone. And so that's kind of like our working principle, right? And but beyond all of that, our core vision at the end of the day is to really help those people that are around the world to get the kind of knowledge that they need. So that we can all like upskill ourselves regardless of our career level. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing today.
Nice. Interestingly, I last 2 weeks I met a mentee from France and another one from Spain. So it's really global, right? It's
very
interesting.
Global, yeah, very global.
And one of them is a designer, and the other one is a aspiring product manager. Very interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Could you share your journey with us? Bring us back into like 5 years ago or something like that. And bring us through your journey.
Yeah, sure. So I am actually 24 this year. I haven't been to college or university. I don't think that I'll be going, honestly. So I'll just start with my story. How everything began. Growing up, I was a very curious kid. I was a very curious kid, but also very entrepreneurial. Because of my parents' upbringing, I've always been taught, if you want to do something, you do it to your best, and also you have to do it yourself, in a way, right? Now, one thing that was that growing up, my dad would actually bring me to his bakery. So he has this very small bakery that he works with my grandparents. And he would ask me to, like go and help to sell some bread, go and help to sell some things. I think that was the upbringing that really molded me to who I am today. Because, when you're young and you go through that sort of experience, right? And to be honest, not many people go through that experience. And I was very honored, and very, very grateful for that, because, that experience has really taught me about being very shameless, right? You want to sell something, you got to go out there, you got to ask people what they want, you got to sell them, and you got to talk to them. And I was probably 6 years old, probably 7, right? Like primary 1, primary 2, those kind of age, and up to primary 6 as well, I was there. And it really taught me a lot. And I think, there was once, like, one of the poly lecturer asked me, said, hey, what makes you to be like that, right? Like, what makes you curious? What makes you want to go out there and do all this kind of thing? And I think it's, and he asked me, like, how do we actually, in the education system, replicate someone like that or behavior like that? To be honest, you can't, right? Because these are things where, it's like someone's upbringing. It's like their childhood, right? So it's honestly something that I'm very fortunate to be a part of. Obviously, my dad has been such a huge inspiration for me personally. Wake up early in the morning, come back very late at night, work, those kind of thing. So yeah, and I started fast forward, I started my first company, second year of poly. Back then, actually, I was quite a good student, to be honest. I was actually a scholar in school. I was actually a scholar, and then I was also part of the Singapore national team for rollerblading. So I was a professional sports person as well. Now, obviously, very good profile in studies, very good profile in sports. But I decided that it wasn't something that I really wanted to do for the long term. And I thought that one of the quotes that I live by, it was like Steve Jobs, was that if today were the last day of your life, would you want to do what you're about to do? And I think it struck me, right? I was actually listening to his speech in one of the math class, and I'm like, actually, if today is the last day of my life, I don't think I want to sit here and listen to this class, because it's not gonna change the world. It's not gonna help someone. It's not gonna do anything at all. And I was very impatient. I was like, look, if today is really the last day of my life, I want to skip to the part where I'm actually doing something for people and it's useful, right? Like creating the next iPhone or something. And that was when I decided that, okay, I'm gonna go out there and learn myself. Because if school is not going to teach me something fast enough, or school is not going to progress to where I want to be, then I'm going to take things to my own hand, right? So that was when I had to drop my scholarship. I decided to go out there, start my first company. And obviously, one thing that people don't see a lot on my LinkedIn and my public profile is that I started those companies, and it didn't really work out the first few times. And eventually, I started this company with my brother called PackDad. It's a travel company. I think by then I was already end of year 2 or something. And I decided to work on it for a year and a half, right? And then I came to year 3. Now, by the end of year 3, the final year of my poly, finishing year 3, by the end of 2 years, I actually sold that company, right? Obviously, it was acquired. It wasn't such a high price, but at that age, at the age of 20, that was my first break and breakthrough. And personally, it wasn't really about that material that I received at the end of the day, but it was a lot about that journey that has taught me to where I am today. Right. And I felt like, I really wanted to pay tribute to those people who had done amazing stuff for me. Right. And so I think I continue to pay it forward as well in that sense to advise people. And then, after this, I flew to Silicon Valley. Right? So I fly there alone. After that, because, coming from a very humble family, actually, in Singapore, going to US is quite expensive, right? Especially San Francisco. And so I didn't have my family, none of us has actually been to the US. And so personally for me, after the company was acquired, I had some money, and I decided that why not spend this money to, go somewhere where I really want to learn from. So I actually take that, and actually I booked a flight to San Francisco for 1.5 months, and I stayed there alone. I stayed in the most, the most ransacked hostel kind of thing. I was staying in a very, no one saw those hostels, by the way. I took very nice photos, but no one saw where I was staying. So I wanted to highlight that. I was actually staying not in a good hotel. I was staying in a very small hostel, and I was sharing a small room. Can you imagine? I was sharing a small room, right, with 2 other roommates. And they are very good friends today. One of them is from Russia, one of them is from Austria, and both of them are girls, right? And they are my sisters today, amazing, amazing people. And I actually shared the room with 2 of them. And one of the things, right, the moment I went there, one of the things that I learned was that everyone there was very hungry for something. And it's not that they are a local hungry for something. They are internationally coming here. And so my roommates, Anna and Katie, actually, they were there for their internship, right? And they actually had to fight their way from their country all the way here for internship because it's very competitive as well, right? And they come here. And I learned a lot from them. And throughout my 1.5 months there, I was deeply inspired by the way that people perceive the world there, right? Like, if you want to build something, you have to build something for the world, right? Which is why today, actually, it's not surprising. You see a lot of global companies coming out from Silicon Valley, right? And not from like other countries or other places, because there's something about this place that makes it so universal, right? The people there are always so ahead and they really want to do something. And I was so inspired by that. I came back to Singapore, sadly, or whatever, and I came back and I had to serve the army. So can you imagine, like, after all these things happened, I had to come back and serve the army. I was like, oh God, I really don't want to come back and serve the army. But the 2 years in the army, I think if there's anything that I take away from that, right, is that if you are different in a sense, if you are already different in a sense, don't try to fit in, embrace that difference, right? Because in the army, honestly, I was like pretty much like, I was very alone in many different cases, right? I went through SCS, I went through leadership school and stuff like that. But throughout all these things, I was very alone. To be honest, because I always had this very different mindset that I'm not gonna be in army forever, like for 2 years, or I'm only be here for 2 years. So my commitment and my heart is still with what I did, right, and what I've done. And so obviously I did that. And then when I came out of the army, I actually signed a full-time job with GoTrade as their first design lead, and I led their whole entire design, and doing very well. And thereafter, I left that job and started ADPList. Did I want to start ADPList? Actually, I didn't want to start ADPList. Honestly, it was a side project. Really, it was a side project that I just wanted to do to help people during COVID-19. But it seems like the world needed something like that. It seems like people needed a resource like that, and it only felt right that I do it, because I felt like I have the heart to go and do it. I felt like I wanted to I wanted kids that were in my position when I was younger to get the resource and to get the kind of like perspective from mentors that I had, that I wish I had, So that's why I started ADP. So this whole entire journey, it takes about like 5 to 6 years. But I started like pretty young, so I'm like really, really grateful for that.
Speaking about ADPList, was it a non-profit to start with? And how did it kind of transit to what it is today?
Yeah. So I think we started off with a very simple spreadsheet, right? So because I don't know how to code, right? So my only thinking was I want to solve a problem. And the problem back then was people were looking for jobs and people were losing jobs, right? Now, and obviously like people were losing hope as well. The hope part is very important. I was like, I don't know how to code, so how can I actually help others? So I actually created this Excel sheet, right? Public spreadsheet, where you can put your names inside if you're finding for jobs. And then if you are also looking to help someone out, whether be it provide with them like some mentorship support and stuff like that, you can also put your name there and someone can reach out to you. Now, I saw that the part about the mentorship part was actually more popular. And then eventually it went viral. And a lot of people just joined in. I was like, actually there's something to develop on. And then we just built a website. And then my co-founder James came in and then we built a website for it. Now, throughout this whole phase, right, of like from an Excel sheet to a first version of website, I've never thought of it as a non-profit. I've never thought of it as a for-profit. All along, I thought of it as I just want to build something that people want and people will find it useful. Like I have never thought of it as an organization, to be frank. And probably, like this is something that I keep very close to my heart and I don't really share it publicly, but I've never really put anywhere on my LinkedIn that I'm a CEO of ADPList or that ADPList is a company. Like I would never really say that publicly. I would never really say that to the mass public. Now the reason for that is because like I didn't start this off as someone who wants to make like millions of dollars or whatever. So for me, it just like does not feel right to put a corporate term inside this whole thing, because I feel like the world owns this. Like I might be the founder of ADPList, but I feel like every single mentor owns this platform to themselves, and I am just a person who is there to make sure that this exists and this thing is continue running. So in my mind, there wasn't a point where it was non-profit or profit. But obviously there came a point where we asked ourselves, how do we keep this sustainable, right? Because this thing can't run forever without money, right? And we think like, okay, we want to scale the team, we want to scale, most importantly, the impact of this thing, right? Now, when you want to scale the impact of this thing, you need money to do it, you need a team. And so that was when we went out there, talked to some investors, and then we started to raise some fund, from Search and some of the founders, some of the people here in Southeast Asia. And that was when we decided to become a startup. But I think that the core thing that I always talk about is like profiting with purpose, right? I think, one thing that I learned about and actually Suri from Carousel shared with me this, it's about, is this quote that Disney shared, So Disney once said this, he said like, it goes like that, we don't make movie to make money, all right? We make money so that we can make more movies, right? Because the end goal for Disney is to make more movies. So the money is only just a medium for that to happen. And I think for the same relates to us as well. Like, we don't want to make money just for the sake of making money. We want to make money so that we can make more impact. We can make mentorship even more accessible for people who we have not yet touched their lives, right? And I think has always been the fundamental purpose for us.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, I can second to that, right? Kind of, where the mentors kind of own, in a way, it's a co-ownership of ADPList rather than a founder or founding team. It's really each and every mentor in the system, in the ecosystem, have an ownership because we all manage our bookings with the mentees and we kind of grow together with ADPList. And it's really remarkable, right? That I mean, I know we are 24 years old, really, really, really young, relatively young, and ADPList kind of started. I mean, it really started in 2020 last year, and within a year, you guys have grown to a system of 3,000 over mentors, right, and more than 70 countries, and over 1,000 mentees. So how did that growth trajectory happen, right? Is it a linear one or how did it go?
One of the things that we sort of like saw that was that there was this very organic sort of like love for the product and for the community. Like, people were sharing their stories of them learning with each other. They were also sharing their stories of like them being a mentor and them being a mentee. And it was just extremely heartwarming because if you think about it, if you learn from someone, whether be it a mentee or mentor, like, sometimes you want to share it on social media and you tell people that, hey, I met someone amazing like Eric and I want to share that learning with others as well, right? This is what I've learned. Like, if today I met like Mark Zuckerberg or something, I would probably want to write about a post about me meeting him, of what I've learned from my 30 minutes conversation with him, right? And it's this very organic sense of like community and giving back, right, that kept us like growing pretty much globally, right? And a lot of people has actually asked me, through the past week, actually this week, I've met over like 20 investors, and there was one very common question, right? The common question is, how in the world did you get so many mentors from such good companies, right? Good companies like Property Guru, where you're from, like Facebook and whatever. Like, how in the world did you get so many people to join you and mentor for free? That was the big question. And I'll tell you that this is something that's very intangible, right? Very intangible. Because there are some people that join us for many different reasons, right? And then the investors will ask as well. The other question they ask as well is like, because other platforms are paying the mentors, or like the mentors are like asking for money or whatever, $300, $500. But my question back to them and everyone is that, think about it, right? If that happens, if that transaction happens, right? Like, that those platforms would have been popular right now. Like, there's a reason why like paid mentorship just doesn't work out, right? It's not actually, mentors doesn't want to be like paid, compensated like heavily. Mentors only want one thing, actually two. They want to do it flexibly. Basically means if I'm free, I do it. I want that control. I want that ownership. That's what they want, right? Second thing is that they want to see the person's growth, right? But the first one is the most important one. I just want my flexibility. So I'm willing to do it for free, but as on the condition that I can do it for myself and as and when I want. So, which is why at ADPList we provide a whole end-to-end system for people to actually control their flexibility, because we understand that fact, right? And I think that's the first reason, right? It's a more tangible, technical reason. Now, the second reason that people do this and grow this fast as well globally is, because people feel a very deep sense of like mission and community, right? I want to belong to somewhere where I can share my knowledge, or I want to belong to somewhere where I can, be a part of this network and continue learning as well. And I think we provide that safe space for that to happen, and we continue to do so. In fact, all the mentors that have applied, are vetted through. So we scan through their profile, their LinkedIn, and only the acceptance rate is about 35%. We want to make sure that everything is quality here. But the growth itself has been phenomenal around the world and still continue to grow very fast. And I think for us, the key today here is to really, try to touch as many lives as possible, whether be it or not from Southeast Asia, whether be it or not from India or from US, from North America. I think the key is for us to continue touching more lives and having more knowledge exchange.
Yeah, thanks, Felix, for that. It's very inspiring to hear that. And I feel that you're at a level where you can empathize the users, which is the mentors and mentees, really deep. Because what you just shared in the past, 2 minutes or so, is really what my heart is speaking, right? In terms of what I'm seeking as a mentor, right? To help others, right? To be flexible, right? To see the mentees grow, right? So that really is I'll really comment on that, right? And let's talk about product market fit, right? And do you see ADPList, fitting into the market, right? In terms of the mentorship, how did they pivot, right, to the past 6 months or so?
Yeah, today we have achieved like incredible, market fit and growth. I think that people talk about us, people love us. We have an extremely high NPS score of 86. People just absolutely love like being a part of this community. Now, I think the way to find product market fit, right? It's really something that I can say, but I think when you do it, it's much more than just saying it. It's actually about talking to your users and making sure that you are very close with them. Now, believe it or not, I think Eric, because you probably will have experienced this as a mentor. When you first join as a mentor, when anyone first get accepted as a mentor, I would actually personally send all of you a LinkedIn message and let you know that you have been accepted, right? And so I don't do that just for you, Eric. I do that for every single mentor that has been accepted on ADPList. Or at least I try to do that for every single one. I'm pretty sure I cover like 98% of people. And the reason why I do that is because I want them to know that I'm here to actually do this with you. And also, most importantly, I'm here to actually listen to you and work on this mission together. Because to me, mentors and mentees are not a user of the platform. I never call them a user. Like, I also let my team know that we will never call these people users. Like, we call them our partners. We call them like our mentors. We call them like our friends, right? Because the one reason is because they are on this mission with us, right? They are on this mission with us. They are not like here just to be like part of Facebook or whatever, right? They are on this mission with us. Like, we don't want to be the next like company that is just like, oh, just grow users and users. We want to grow champions. We want to grow and make sure that people believe in this thing that we're fundamentally doing. So I connect with all the mentors. And on the mentee side, I actually send everyone an email as well, right? And when someone I will send an email and say, hey, this is my personal email. If you have any issues, you can come directly to me. And obviously, I think I'm creating more, more emails for myself, right? Every morning I wake up to a lot of emails, but that's fine, right? That's fine. That's fine by me. I take about an hour or so to clear those emails, to read, to reply some of them, and to really understand where they're coming from, right? And ask them questions as well. I think as a founder, like maybe a very experienced founder would hire someone else to do that for them, right? Like those people that has like second time, third time founder, or like they're already like, well off or something, they'll do that and they'll do this for them. But I will never do that. I will never ever do that, because if you want to solve a problem, right, you have to solve it with your heart. Like this is something that I really do, right? You have to be very sincere about solving it. I started being sincere about solving people's problems. And 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, I'm still going to be that person who is like day one, I'm still going to be sincere about solving that problem. They are not my users, they are our champions of the mission. And I think that's how important it is to actually think about finding product market fit, is that you really have to get down to the ground and really be sincere and say, cannot have that, you can't have that capitalist mindset and say, I'm here to make money out of you. Money will come if you're sincere about solving people's problems. Right? And I'm not concerned about that. I mean, there are investors who ask me like, hey, monetization model and stuff like that. But I always put back and I say, I want to solve the people's problem. We can talk about that maybe 2 years, 3 years down the road. Yeah.
Nice. I mean, I really love that that point of being sincere and solving a problem with your heart, right? Because a lot of startups really solve the problem with the brain, right? But I think solving the problem with the heart and the brain together, I think is very important, right? And if you solve the problem good enough, right? I mean, the money will come later, but I think that's not the main thing, right? The main thing is really solving the problem for champions of the mission, like what you mentioned, right? let's talk about the team, right? And growing the team, right? Just like I mentioned, you have 15 people and 50 with ambassadors. Are they located in Singapore, like where we are in this little island, or are they all across the globe?
Yeah, so in Singapore, actually, quite embarrassingly to say that we only have two people from Singapore right now, which is me and the CX lead, the ops lead. Two of us are in Singapore, but everyone else is located pretty much around the world. So we have employees in India, we have employees in North America, which is in US and Canada. We also have employees in Africa as well, where my co-founder is based there. Yeah, so it's very, very global and remote team.
Right. And how do you manage communications and collaboration in this kind of setup, right? I think where everybody's everywhere.
So I think one thing that I learned as a leader, and I actually learned this from one of someone who I consider a great mentor to me personally, an advisor, which is Rajan from Sequoia. So he used to manage Google for the whole of APAC and India. So one of the things he told me was that the best operational teams and performing teams actually have a very good operational rhythm, and operational rhythm simply means like being very consistent. Like how you have a music, right? Like a musical sheet. It's like very consistent. The music is very consistent. So basically, by creating a very consistent rhythm to your operations, people are able to comfortably flow along with it. It's like you are creating a very good flow for them. And so working like remotely, right? You have to create a very strong cadence. Like, okay, weekly we're going to have this one meeting or two meetings on this. Weekly we're going to have this very particular cadence. Now it takes some time to find that rhythm. It does take some time to find that, but once you find that, stick with it, right? Once you find that, stick with it. So for us, for James and myself and the rest of the team, we have been working on this even before we got funded. So all of us are working on this as volunteers first, even before this. And we already found our natural rhythm, and we're already floating in it, right? Obviously now we optimize even more for more people and for more speed. But I think finding that rhythm that works for you is extremely important in a remote world. Now the other part about that is asynchronous communication. Now I think a lot of people would fall into the trap of, okay, because it's remote, we got to do a lot of meetings. Now, my meetings are mostly externals. So my meetings are mostly with partners and stuff like that these days. Internal team meetings, I do only I try to cut every meeting that I have one-on-ones into 15 minutes or at most 30 minutes to save time on their side and my side. Now, if there's things that do not need a meeting, we either just do a quick hurdle, like spontaneous hurdle if necessary, or basically they record a video, and then I would see it, I will view it, and then I will make my comments on the video. So they will record a Loom video and say, oh, Felix, this is what happened this week, and stuff like that. And then I will comment on that video. I might ask some questions, I might give some feedback and stuff like that. And so even if they are in the US time zone, with that video, I'm able to actually make comments, and then they are able to solve it and let me know immediately when they wake up or whatnot. And so I think, being a full remote team, I think it's very important to not burn people out with meetings, but actually understand the rhythm and then understand a way to work asynchronously as well.
Nice. I love that video part where we're sending like snippets. I think that really solves that problem of a lot of meetings, right? Because not everything needs to be synchronous, right? As you mentioned, right? It could be one-off, a quick chat or quick huddle on Slack, for example, right? I'm a big fan of huddles. Quick 5 minutes, sort it out and go on, right?
Exactly.
I would like to talk about meeting your co-founder, James. How do you meet your co-founder?
So James and I actually never met in person, right? And we actually met on LinkedIn. So we met on LinkedIn when the spreadsheet got started, and then James PM'd me and said, hey, since you are doing this, back then for designers only, the Excel sheet is not gonna look good for designers. And I said, of course, I agree. But I said, I don't have the time or the expertise to go and do the website because, back then I was like in my full-time job. And I said, I'd rather just leave it as it is, right? Because, like I say, I'm here to help people. I'm not here to build the next company or whatever, right? And then James was like, why not I help you to do it? I help you to build it. And back then, James, he's a freelance no-code developer. And by the way, he is appointed by Webflow themselves as one of the world best no-code developer, right? And so he's a freelance, one of the world best no-code developer. The first thought that I have was like, oh, maybe he's here to try to sell me a freelance project. Now, and I said, why not we get on a call? I want to understand Because I'm willing to pay for a freelance project for sure, but depends on how much, right? It's a side project for me. And so we had a good call the first time. And immediately we clicked very well. I mean, James is a very amazing, nice person. If anyone had a chance to meet him, he's on ADPList, can book a call with him. He's an amazing person. I called him the first time, and he told me that he wanted to do this for free. And I was like, oh, like one of the world best developer, want to do this for free. And I thought, sure, let's design this together, and then let's build a website. I will design it with him, but obviously he built it. Right? He's a developer come designer lah. Right? And so I remember getting a call with him on Friday. Friday night we started designing. By the Sunday night or morning, we have our first MVP out on the website. Very, very straightforward, right? We put all the information from Excel sheet all the way import into the Webflow website through Zapier and stuff like that. It was very, very fast for us. And then the design was really there. And so that was the first version of our website. So James and I literally met on LinkedIn. But we kept a very close and tight-knit collaboration and partnership since then.
Nice. Wow, it's really interesting to have a co-founder that haven't met physically and really just click and go, right? It's really interesting. And let's talk about mentoring. And I know you yourself is a mentor. I did a session with you as well that was really insightful. Can I ask, what is the most memorable mentoring session you had?
Yeah, I think there's a lot, but there's one that particularly stuck with me, and I continuously share the story. So, so I met someone from Nepal. Obviously, he's from a village, right? And so I met someone from Nepal, and he didn't have much resources, to a lot of great mentors there, because it's it's not really the place for that kind of thing. And he actually called me, and then we had a very good call. And obviously, the internet access was not that good, but kept hanging up and kept lagging. But at the end of the day, we figured it out. But one thing that struck me was that throughout the conversation, he was very sincere about learning. He had his questions ready. He had his things that he wanted to ask very ready. Now, this is usually very normal for some mentoring call, and obviously for him, I treat it as normal as well. But what happens after that is something that really started to stick with me. So he actually told me about the circumstances of his village. He actually told me the circumstances of where he's at, how they don't get access to all these things. Because I actually asked him, right? I usually like to ask my mentees as well. I said, how do you find out about ADP and stuff like that? So he shared with me his story, right? And he said that they don't actually get access to such amazing mentors like yourself, people around the world and whatnot. And I said, okay, so how does this, affect you and impact you? And he actually shared with me that, whenever he goes onto such mentoring calls, he actually takes this knowledge and he shares it with his friends in that particular village, right? In that particular place that he stays. Now, in Singapore today, I think, we often talk about the kampong spirit, right? But these days we stay in apartments, we stay in landed and stuff like that. It's very rare that we share these kind of things with people, just like us. Whereas from where he stays, he still has that, which I think is a very rare thing like these days, and I think it's also it's a very precious thing. And so he actually shared that knowledge with the people around him, whether the kids or whether people want to learn. And that was when I knew, this is the most impactful thing, that was when I knew that when a mentor actually mentors someone, you never know how far your knowledge actually can go. Right? Like when I mentored him, I thought I was only mentoring him as a person. But that knowledge goes on in a ripple effect to the people around him. Right? And today, you might have called someone from France and from Spain. You never know that this knowledge that you share will go on and impact the person that they work with, or their siblings, their friends and whatnot. And then your knowledge from Singapore is spread all the way to France and Spain. Right? Where my knowledge will be spread from a country like Singapore is super well developed to a not that developed country like Nepal. And then he's spreading his knowledge to the people in his village. That is the impact of mentorship, right? That is what truly, inspires me to do a lot more because of stories like that, right? Because I know that my voice is not just a voice of 30 minutes call, but I think that 30 minutes goes a long way in wherever context they are, and they are going to, there's going to be a very big ripple effect, right? The more we share. So I think that's the biggest, most inspiring story that I actually have, personally.
Thanks for sharing, Felix. I think it's very interesting. Something that I'd like to share is maybe 10 years ago, right? I'm thinking of finding a mentor. It's so hard to find a mentor. Even in Singapore physically, right? A local mentor is so hard to find because you can't even know where to look for one. And now we're talking about we can easily find a mentors in out in France or in Spain or Nepal to Singapore and stuff like that. It's really across borders. It's really a global mentorship in a way, right? So that's something that really kind of struck me a lot. Yeah, and it really inspires me. And speaking of inspiration, next question to you is who inspires you the most in your life?
Well, I think there's a lot of people that inspire me. I mean, I would like to say my dad, but I think that has always been a figure, and I think everyone can read that from my medium. So I want to share a little bit of maybe a Singapore context, right?
Yep.
So first of all, I think I just want to say shout out to my dad. I think my dad has always been an inspiration for me in terms of soft skills. I think hardworking man, very diligent. Taught me a lot about like being very honest. I think he's always a very giving person to a certain extent that my mom is always like angry because he's too giving, right? I think that is a great trait to learn. But I think in Singapore wise, the person that inspired me a lot is actually our founding father, Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, right? The late Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. He, I think one thing that I do often in Singapore is that every month I will try to go to Marina Bay Sands area, like the CBD area, and I actually try to take a walk alone there every start of the month or every end of the month. And the reason for that is because, I'm able to picture Singapore 50 years ago as a very small fishing village, as a swampland. And then I'm able to see to where it is today. Like I can visualize in my head like the whole entire building transformation and whatever. And it inspires me, right, of how a country can be what it is today in just 56 years. Right. And for me it's like whenever I'm there, I know for sure like I think we can do better. I know for sure that there's much more ahead. And I know that what might seem like all hope is lost can probably be built into one of the greatest cities and one of the greatest things in the world. Singapore is one of those things to do, right? And it gives me a lot of like inspiration, like, and obviously these are led by like the founding prime minister and his team. I really look up to him in terms of like his leadership style, in terms of like obviously like everyone has their pros and cons, right? It's not to get political, but everyone has their own like pros and cons. But I think I choose to look at the things that he has done rather than the things that he has not. Right, the mistakes that he has made rather than the mistakes that he has not. Right, I think mistakes made us who we are, and I think legends are not defined by their success, but defined by their ability to bounce back from failures. Right, and I saw that, in the building of Singapore in many different ways. And so to me, like, inspired me a lot through the founding of Singapore itself, the entire story. I just think that it really gives me a lot of hope, right? As a Singaporean, I think we can do something and we can really put a name on the global map for ourselves.
Yep. Yep. Thanks for sharing. It's really interesting, right? I mean, how Singapore has developed through the years, like you say, from a fishing village and stuff, to what it is today. And definitely, our forefathers definitely inspires us a lot, right? To where we are today, right? A hub of innovation, right? A hub of business, right? Felix, I know that you also have a lot of mentors, a lot of founders, right, of bigger companies. What is the most insightful advice? Because there are a lot of listeners, there are PMs and also founders of very early startups. So what is the most insightful advice you could share?
Wow, this is a big question. So
you can quote from founders out there that you know.
The most insightful advice that I received was from someone when I think I was in a class, and then there's a speaker that came in, and then he actually told the class this. He said, "You need to know one thing in life, is that your best is never going to be enough. If you want to be like the best in the world, your best will never be enough. You have to do whatever it takes. You have to stop saying I will do my best. You have to start saying I will do whatever it takes. Because your best right now has a ceiling, right? The best always has a ceiling. But if you want to cross that ceiling, you have to do whatever it takes. And I always tell my team that, and I always tell myself that as well, every day. I said, look, I might not have done this before, so I'm not going to say I'm going to do my best or whatever, right? Or even if I've done it before. I'm going to say I'm going to do whatever it takes until we get there, until we get these results. Because we know that what got us here won't get us there. Right? And so that was the best piece of advice that I've ever gotten. And I continue to share that with my team and people around me, is that recognize that your best will never be enough. This is not to downplay yourself. This is the hard truth, right? If you want to be the best out there, you want to be the top 1%, 0.1%, your best right now will never be enough. You cannot settle. You have to do whatever it takes, right? And I think that's one best piece of advice personally that I can share with anyone. And I always look up to the greats of the group, right? Like, think about it like the great Kobe Bryant, right? Or like Steve Jobs and stuff like that, right? David Beckham, right? You remember their last game, their last free kick, their last free throw, their last, Einstein's last theory, Steve Jobs' last invention, right? These are people who did not just give their best. These are people that gave whatever it takes to be there to do.
Thanks for the inspiration, Felix. That is really inspiring. To really talk about it's not doing your best, but it's really doing what it takes. It's really full-fledged hustling. It's really full-fledged hustling, right? We're kind of wrapping up the episode today. So just the final few questions. Could you share your view on what's next? What is the future for mentoring?
Yeah, for sure. So I want to share an incredibly grand vision. And I think everyone should really think about this. And maybe 5 years, 10 years down the road, they listen to this podcast, might be a very different future. Might be the future that we want to create towards. And one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is mentorship playing a role like internet played in the world back in the 1990s, right? And what I mean was that, back then there's no internet, and obviously, then there was the internet, and people started to go online, and then some businesses started to go online as well, and then people go online, and now practically every single company is online, right? And it made them better. Now, if you think about it, there's a few traits that is actually we are seeing the same at ADPList and Mentorship as well, is that the education system is very, very lag behind in a lot of ways, right? Pragmatic ways, right? Like someone that is learning, like marketing in business school, come out and become a designer, right? They spend $200,000 in school fees, and then they come out 4 years later, they come out and do something extremely different, right? That is a lack of access to great information early on, and we don't just see that happening in like rural areas or whatever. We see that happening in top tier countries like Singapore even, right? It's not because like these students do not know what they want, right? It's because they don't have the early access to all this information, this social information enough, this social knowledge enough, right? And I almost always say like ADP is going to be like the people's internet of knowledge in the future, right? Like mentorship is going to be the internet for education, right? Mentorship, the reason why it is going to be is because it's open access, it's unbiased, right? Anyone can be a part of this, right? It's unbiased and it's open for everyone, right? Similar traits to the internet. And what mentorship is going to do with the education and career path system is that it's basically going to bring everyone together on this open network, and so that everyone can get the information as early as they need and as early as they want, and then grow together, right? And it's going to entirely change the way that we learn through education and through career, right? I imagine a world 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, where when ADP's infrastructure is much developed, right? We are not able to fulfill this vision alone. I don't think ADP's as one company can. But I think that if we're able to build that infrastructure, we are able to provide different, like institutions and different companies to build their own mentorship, on top of ADPList, right? Like it's just like how you can build your own website or your own apps on top of the internet, right? Education systems, like institutions around the world, companies around the world will be able to build their own learning system, education system on top of ADPList. And there will be a very good flow of education knowledge and social knowledge shared on this open access network. And that is what I see where the world is going in terms of mentorship.
Thank you, Felix. Thank you for sharing your insights and your vision of ADPList as well. It's really, really, really inspiring. And that is the end of our episode, and really want to appreciate your time, taking time off your busy schedule to be with us today. And really striving the mission of really having making meaningful conversations right between mentors and mentees, and making mentorship accessible for all. Thank you, Felix, for your time.
Thank you so much, Eric, for having me.